Tracy Bunkowski here. Lucy Dilbert here. Robert Pennell.
Present.
Genevieve Rodzik, present. Craig Sims.
Here.
Steve Vitello.
Here.
Rachel Wilson. Okay, thank you. Public hearings, we have none. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Public comments on agenda items. Anyone? Approval of the minutes dated December 3rd, 2019. Did everybody have a chance to go over those? Anybody have any feedback?
I do not. I do.
You can get them? Rachel sent them out to everybody forever ago, but
Like the beginning of December.
yeah. Do you want to then have an opportunity to review them and we can put them over to next month? Anybody?
Sure.
Okay. Motion to table the minutes of December 3rd, 2019.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Communication correspondence workshop. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share in that regard? Matters for consideration, old business, master plan. So everybody should have received the Google Doc for feedback. That's kind of where we were at with that. We really didn't have anything aside from working on that over this past month. So I think a couple people have had some problems accessing it and such. Have you been good? Have you seen it? The Google Doc?
No, because it opened through my Gmail and I was like, I don't know if I did something wrong, so I have to ask permission.
Mine says I need permission as well.
Okay. Yep. I'll make sure I send all the permissions out for that, so that way you have complete access and you can make comments and everything on it as well. So I know I've permitted several of you so far to do that, but I don't know if I've got everyone's request quite yet.
Okay.
So, yep.
Okay, and that was basically it for master plan tonight, right? We were gonna work on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so that's the big objective. I think for next month's meeting, it'd be nice if for the remainder of the goals and objectives section for the future land use plan, to look at, because we covered the community facilities as well as the downtown sections. If we could look at the residential vision, the commercial and office vision, and then the industrial vision, which those are more static and not necessarily going to be a changing part of the document, but just want to get you guys to review it, see if there's anything that's glaring or needs to be updated in there, and we can kind of go from there. We can cover those pretty quickly next month. So.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Good. Okay, John, with that? Okay, sign ordinance legal opinion. Did everybody get a copy of that correspondence? Okay, so just a little background on that is some concerns came from the office as far as letter distribution and whatnot as to how to contact these businesses and such. And then in turn, John was contacted to help out with that, and he saw some concerns. And then in turn, Sean was contacted to give some legal input on it. So we'll just, you want to just go in that succession and see where we're at? And
Sure.
or is everybody understanding of that communication? Okay, so John, I'll give you.
Okay. So I guess the part of it where I just wanted to make sure that we knew what we were doing before we got into everything, and why I tapped Sean to get some more information on that was, in planning, we don't have a lot of experience in terms of the 5-year rule for getting everything up to proper standard for sign. The realm that we usually work in is in structures. When it comes to non-conforming structures, that standard I feel like is typically a little different to how it's applied. A lot of these buildings and stuff are grandfathered in. So when I saw this provision in there, I just want to make sure that that was something that was, first of all, something that could be enforced before we did embark on anything as a community, just to make sure that we kind of covered our bases. And that's why I reached out to Sean to make sure that that was something that we could do. And he provided us with his opinion on that and the precedents that were there in regards to that. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like the background of my interest in trying to figure out what we're going to do before we go forward. So, yeah.
Okay. Sean?
And everybody understood the email, right? I mean, for the most part, as much as there's a bunch of case citations in this. So that the Metro Media case, which is that last case that I cited there, that's like the big case from 1981, and that's the one that, this most recent case that made us have to overturn all of our sign ordinance. Okay, that was called Reed, right? It was 2015 Supreme Court case. That was on non-commercial signage. That was on everything. I know that case actually dealt with a church, but that's not considered commercial signage either. We're talking about business signage, something that's, you know, more industrial. Some enterprise that's purpose is to generate revenue, right? And so these are actually two different things. There's speech, regulation of speech that's prohibited, that's very, very strict to prohibit against when it comes to First Amendment rights of non-commercial speech. And there's that Metro Media case that in 81 said, yeah, you're not supposed to touch speech, but commercial speech is okay a little bit. You can mess with their signs and their speech because it's a different sort of thing than your regular First Amendment speech of private individuals and nonprofits and all that stuff. When Reed came out in 2015, it did not expressly overrule that 1981 Metro Media commercial signage case. Okay, is everyone following? And I talk fast and I apologize because if I don't, I'll go off the rails. So. And there's dissents in that case, or concurrences from some of the other justices in the Supreme Court that didn't talk about, that didn't agree with the Supreme Court in the Reed case. And they talked briefly about commercial signage and how it's different and how it wasn't touched in this case. So we can look back at that old 1981 case and say, okay, this looks like it's still the law. We can regulate commercial signage. Amortization periods are permitted. I know of other municipalities that have these ordinances, right? I think we all do. People have seen them around and stuff. But we can't stop anybody with $150 from going down to the courthouse and suing us either. So this is not 100%. And again, because of that Reed case in 2015, this new case that upended everything, because of that, there's no reason to believe that they might not come back and visit commercial signage in a stricter sense again if a fight breaks out about it, okay? So I'm saying all that to say this more in plain English. We have to be careful how we proceed here because it's a very gray area. Do I think that we have good arguments? Yes. Are we doing something that at the moment is unconstitutional? No. Okay. But this is a hot topic, an ever-evolving area of the law that if the U.S. Supreme Court has said nothing, it said this, we're going to crack down on this kind of stuff. At the same time, that old case is still good law. It says, you know, municipalities have a right to balance their need to regulate the health, safety, and welfare of the community against the costs to business owners. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay, does anybody have questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I just want to, this isn't we just didn't discuss it and make a decision overnight. Like we all collectively put a lot of time into this and it went through the planner's hands.
Mm-hmm.
You were not in that seat at the time. And it went through your office.
Oh yeah, and Jeff and I talked about this and everything, yeah.
And we were led to believe though that that was okay. So.
And it is, for the most part. I mean, we can't predict the future, and again, right now, according to that law, that 1981 case, Metro Media, it is. But because of this newer case, Reed, not touching on that area of the law, but coming very close to it, right? That's just a small consideration that we have to put in the background there, okay?
I guess I'm disappointed because a lot of time was put into this, so it's kind of, it didn't make any sense for us to include that if you're that adamant about us not including it.
Oh, no, I think we should. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's my job, it's our office's job to give you the most candid advice possible as to where we're at and what the considerations are. It's still good law right now. We are in the right, okay? But this is something that we have to advise you about because there's a possibility, okay?
With all due respect, maybe that should came before the car, but I think anybody can sue.
They can.
For anything.
That's right.
Yes, they can.
That's
It's
right.
just,
And what I'm saying is
Once
there's
you
like,
follow through.
absolutely.
and what I'm saying is there's legal exposure at like a 20% level as opposed to we're 80% right, 20%. You see what I'm saying? So that's why there was really no issue regarding it. But if we want to revisit it a little bit closer, just to let you know, we're still good, but we have to think about, I'm just letting you know. It's our job to give you as much advice as possible when it comes to this kind of situation.
Okay, are we in a good position then to notify businesses of the ordinance changes and send out that letter? So I guess what our goal is by the beginning of this year,
Mhm.
was that on day one of this year, with some process, that 5 years was going to begin. It would start with a letter, and then our code enforcement officer would go out and say, okay, these 10 signs have been put on 5-year notice. And then that process would
Sure.
take place. Are we in a position that we can move forward with that?
It's in our ordinance, and I think that we can, sure.
Okay. Are you able to, I think more so from you, just because of the complication, is your office able to help Lori draft up that letter
Absolutely, we can do that.
for that, and work with her, and then we can contact Dan once we're in, our code enforcement officer, once we're in a good place to go out and note which signs and document that, so that they're aware of their situation.
And the additional wrinkle is, of course, Michigan law. Like the federal constitution and the federal courts, as far as a lot of rights, they set the floor, not the ceiling. So a state can set a higher threshold to protect individuals and businesses from government intrusion, right? So the other case that I cite, I believe I did in that email, is a Michigan case interpreting the United States Supreme Court First Amendment precedent and all that stuff. And it has to do with the city, not a village. Now, it's still good law, and all of the police powers that a city has, of course, they have more in the Home Rule City Act, but the General Law Village Act provides the same health, safety, and welfare police powers as a city does. See what I mean? There's no jurisprudence on this stuff. There's not a lot of case law in this situation. There's another potential legal pitfall here, right? That's kind of the issue. In Michigan, there's been a lot of Court of Appeals, unpublished cases, so they're not actually law, arguing back and forth about this, but it's never gone to the Michigan Supreme Court either. So something else to think about, but again, with the published case law that's out there, we're still right.
Rob?
Was the sign ordinance ever approved by council?
I believe so.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's published and everything, so it is in effect.
When did it?
Remember?
Summer, early fall,
Was it?
Yeah.
October.
I'd say, yeah, about October, and then it had to be published, I believe, twice it has to be published, so it would be in
So all
effect
that's
now.
done,
It's done.
and it's in effect.
It's in effect.
Are you worried about the Supreme Court? Say they put something out. I mean, this thing came down in 2015, and it's just starting to filter to affect us.
Sure.
I mean, 5 years later, if somebody comes up with something today, before we see anything about it, so
Well, probably because there's a lot of these ordinances out there too.
why not progress with?
You know, that's fine.
Yeah, I think the important part is like we start the 5-year period for
Yeah.
these,
Sure.
for these businesses, and if something happens in a year
Sure.
or two, then, there's really just no harm.
Oh, no, that's exactly right. So the courts won't even hear it until there's an actual injury, right? A concrete injury. Although sometimes they will strike down ordinances, as they say, facially, right? Instead of as applied.
Right.
But it all depends.
Right, because this is just a notification process.
Yeah.
The enforcement's not gonna occur for 5 years, really. So-
But again, there is a possibility that you can challenge these laws
Mhm.
facially, not just as applied to someone, meaning they can just look at it and say, I haven't even been harmed by this law, but the existence of this law technically harms us, right?
Right,
There's that possibility as well, although we could make the argument, hey, listen, there's no concrete injury here, what do you want us to do? And then the simple thing would be, if the courts do decide, hey, listen, you guys are wrong, then nothing, there's no damages to the village, right? And nothing else except that we have to change the ordinance. That would be the remedy.
Well, even if someone went to court, I mean,
Yeah,
tens of thousands of dollars versus just changing the sign for $3,000.
that's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
I can't see anybody bothering to, put out that kind of money to fight the system per se, and just put up a nice sign for their business to, don't know.
It happens.
Yeah,
It's kind of how
I
we started.
believe that.
You can't go to court,
Yeah.
burp, without costing you $10,000, so,
People with the money will do it for the principal.
yeah.
Okay, did anybody else have any questions for Sean or John? Okay, so if you could just, we'll make that our point going forward, if you could help Lori, I
Sure.
think, just draft up that letter, and then we'll work with, once that's done, we'll work with Dan and code enforcement to start the list and get that documented. John and I spoke on it, make sure that it's stored somewhere else. The county has a copy, you have a copy, and the village has a copy, but it's stored in multiple places.
Do you think possibly, we might even know when Dan goes out and starts visiting these business owners, we might get an idea of what could possibly happen. We might hear something right away. But if that's the case, we could change, and if we decide that, hey, people are up in arms about it,
Mhm.
we could change the ordinance, but that quickly, couldn't we? We'd have to,
We could.
within reasonable,
I mean,
if we need to.
Within 5 years.
yeah, I think, yeah, 5 years,
Yeah.
so I think we're
Stand
good.
behind it.
Well, that's
That
my
too,
concern.
but how, if we're gonna stand our ground and then they're gonna stand their ground,
Right.
Like I said,
we could be in this.
But if we're not gonna move forward with progress, then this makes no sense.
True.
So we have to make a decision in that sense.
Mhm.
Chris?
Just wait.
Oh, okay. Then sit down.
My opinion of this ordinance is that it's much needed. It's a step in the right direction as far as cleaning up the appearance. As far as the legal challenge, I never shy away from a good fight. And I think what we have right here, that we could withstand this fight. Okay? So I think the ordinance has already been approved by council, and once we receive the letter from Sean's office, then we'll make sure that it's sent out. And my only question is that I hope the ordinance is clear and not open to interpretation from our code enforcement, because that in itself could create some legal issues.
Well, I think,
is there something
Would it be
specific
fair-
that you see that you think, is there something?
It just need to be clear. Left is left and right is right. Or some backwards. So, and while Dan is doing a good job, Dan tends to interpret.
Yes.
would it be out of step to ask for this to be joint between, say, Mr. Cowan?
I was gonna suggest that we bring in the building inspector also.
And we do two opinions as
Yeah.
opposed to just a
Because like I said, I
single?
don't wanna get into a legal situation because Dan is reading it this way.
Right,
And say Sean's office has written it this way.
right. I would like, and this would be more of a conversation if we have with Dan, but I think with all of these is like, we need photographs,
Yes.
on top of the documentation, so
Yeah,
we
I
can
mean,
see that this is
Maybe
what we
it could be
have.
something as simple as writing a citation, but not issuing it until it's been reviewed.
Perhaps, yeah, I can see
I
that.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maybe-
Good idea.
John?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to echo what Mr. Dover was saying, was that just making sure we have a coherent strategy. We know exactly what we're supposed to be saying to these businesses when we do approach them. That we have a consistent message is probably prudent, and that the documentation is perfect.
I'd like to see for myself and is maybe from where we notify these, is that there isn't a personal contact, but there is maybe only legal contact. So Dave and Dan come back with their recommendations, And
Then it's
then,
mailed out?
sorry,
Then it's mailed out? or-
and then it's mailed out instead of that personal dialogue for,
Yes.
you know, so you have a
Because that does
picture.
create an issue.
Right, so you have a picture, you have this letter from whatever direction that it comes in. Sean, I'll work for you. And, you know, I don't know how many signs it's going to affect in town, but
Probably
just
doesn't
a,
happen, does it?
you know,
Somewhere in that
a
neighborhood.
form letter of this address, this address, and this address. And maybe there's just no dialogue between our code enforcement officer and these businesses. Maybe we just keep it in-house.
But we'll make sure from the office standpoint, we'll make sure that once we receive the letter, and that we move forward with this, because like I said, it's a much needed, to help clean up some of these old signs, and personally, I think a 5-year period is reasonable.
Right.
You know, I mean, they can cite away whatever it's gonna take, $1,000 a year or whatever, and, you know, it's gonna help their own business, and I think that's, you know, that's a long, term thing, so. On that note.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
So then the direction is gonna come from who to who? How's that gonna work?
We'll start with,
You're gonna write the letter, and then you're gonna mail the letters. Well, you can't write or,
We'll write it, oh, absolutely, I'll write them, and then
We'll write.
we'll have everybody, the commission look at them, approve, maybe,
okay,
feedback from the planner, the building official and code enforcement too, even, what do you think? I mean,
that's fine, yeah.
okay,
so,
I think that's advisable.
they're gonna get a letter saying this is gonna be happening, you're gonna be inspected, or they're gonna get a letter after the inspection?
I think-
it would be inspected, right?
I think the first letter should maybe just advise that there's been changes, just a general to all businesses,
And you
right?
can find
These
such
are,
and
these are
such a
our
place in
new
the law.
ordinances. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but, so our first letter is just, hey, all businesses in New Haven, these are our new ordinances, we're advising you that we're gonna be out, you know, inspecting things or whatever, however you wanna word it, in the next 30 days. And, sorry, John?
I was just saying, that's one where I just think felt like, we'll definitely be careful, I think, with how we word that, because it might raise alarm with a lot of people.
I was just thinking that's gonna be an influx of a lot of calls.
I'm wondering
So
if
we'll
that
just-
first letter needs to go out, or the ordinance, it's a public it's already been published, it's my
That's true.
job as
Yeah.
a citizen to know what the ordinances are. So I am maybe suggesting maybe the inspection needs to be done, and then whoever it affects gets
Be
notified.
more targeted.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fair too, yeah.
Agreed.
From a legal standpoint, that was my first thought when we started talking about that. Was it's been published, there's an effective date, everything, we're good on that. They're on notice
Right.
already.
Okay, so then I guess our first path would just be to contact Dan and Dave, right? And get those,
Right.
make sure that they understand what the expectations are legally and through the ordinance. And
Will John work with them on that? Who works with them on that?
have you worked with, or
Not
have?
to work with them, but, I mean, that's something that I think we'd be open to having a conversation with them, and we can work as a team on that, and figure out how we're gonna move forward with reviewing these different signs and everything else.
Maybe we'll see if we can set up a meeting for everyone to meet one day, Dave and Dan and yourselves, that works. I'll send it like a group email or something and see if we can figure something out we can get everybody together in the same place.
I don't want to create more work, but at the same time, there have been a lot of things that have been approved and voted on, and they get put over here, and they don't get followed. So I'm going to be very adamant about it. We're going to do it, we're going to do it. So I don't know if you could just let us know how it goes or what the next step will be.
I can CC people on the communication, just, I don't want it to turn into like a feedback email, just to
I
keep
don't
people
either,
aware.
but I want to make sure that it's followed through.
Okay, I'll just CC people on email, just keep if you guys are fine with that.
Absolutely. I already emailed Lori too, just to coordinate with her and see if she started a draft or whatever. That's what I was doing with her.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think we necessarily have to be CC, but I think maybe just some follow-up next month. This is where we are on this.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is how far we get, the next month. Now we're at this step and
Just
this step.
Okay, we could just put it as a standing item on the agenda, just an update, if that's okay.
Well, I mean, we will definitely have the letter drafted by the next meeting, so
Okay,
How would you like that?
I'm comfortable with you just taking, if you guys are comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it just going to Lori and whatnot. So so I understand, this will be the letter that the businesses receive if they are in violation. And then Lori will just fill in the address and the business name, is that how that's gonna go? Is it,
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
yeah, that's fine.
it's up to the commission, so.
Yeah, that's fine. I can send it out to everybody when it's received.
I guess it all depends like how you guys want to approach it. If you wanted to have them, let's say we notify them of a violation or whatever, and then have them come in to discuss it, or if you wanted to include what exactly it was that they were violating in that letter with pictures and more details and stuff like that. I guess it all depends on how you want to approach that. Otherwise, it's like multiple interactions with the business to get to that point where they actually know what they did.
I think you need to know how many are in violation first, because you don't want to set up
Yeah.
20 meetings to discuss what they're in violation of, but 3 or 4.
Is that
That's the problem.
what other communities do, is they meet with all these businesses as they, do you know?
I think in most of the situations that we have, like that we've worked with in the past, it's mostly the code enforcer will go to the door and like knock on the door and have a conversation. But I think in this situation, I think the letter is a good route to go by. But I don't know, what would you think?
I think so. The letter,
Do we give them an opportunity in the letter to say if you would like to appeal this, if you would,
No.
or just
No.
leave it cut and dry?
there's no appeal process in the ordinance.
Right, so if you have, do we just leave it to Lori if you have any questions or concerns about this? I mean, Lori might,
I think that's also the best metric for how we're gonna be able to determine if there's gonna be a legal issue
okay,
as well, right? I mean, we are gonna need to, I think it's best to give as much notice to
Right.
the constituents as possible. So front load everything, right? I write the letter, we have the whole, I'll have everybody in the office review it. Make sure everything is on par and as good as it is, legally sound. And then pictures and everything we can send to them, but hopefully we'll get some feedback then, yeah. So I would say that it would be advisable at the end to, if you have issues, contact building department, and then it can come through the legal department after that.
okay.
Because, I mean, we want to know up ahead if there's going to be a legal fight, I would think.
So we would need
That's what I want to know.
pictures and everything
Mm-hmm.
prior to the letter.
Being distributed.
Quite-
As much notice as possible up front about as much of the problems as possible. All, as far as, this is what the ordinance says, this is what we got, this is what's going
I'm
on.
sorry, I was just, like, when we were talking about meeting with them and stuff, I was like, I don't know if that's, I think that's a lot.
So I think maybe if we're going to go up the route of having more like tailored, where you're going to have like the images and stuff there too, we may want to have like a template that will have like what, let's say violations, that you can fill in the blank type of thing, insert picture here, this is what it is, so that way it's not going to be difficult for them to put that stuff together either, so.
And it'll be easy for the building department to, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Had his hand up.
I don't think we should be inviting them to, hey, come to the office and bitch about it type of thing. It's, if we give them the violation, we give them a copy of the sign ordinance, suggest that they contact sign manufacturers with the new ordinance to come up with a sign for their, within the 5 years, and I don't know if we should be inviting them for a bitch fest at the village office to pour,
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about like that conversation we had about meeting with them. I don't know about, but I
tell them the
understand.
way it is.
You want to see where they're
Yeah,
standing.
well,
You want to see how far they're gonna,
They have
At the
questions.
same time, it's always best to do everything in writing,
right.
because then we have a record of it
Yeah.
for litigation purposes, okay? I mean, that's my job, I'm always centered around, what is this gonna end up in a lawsuit? But inevitably, if they have a problem, they're gonna contact building or the village one way or another, no matter what.
And she should just refer them to you.
Yes,
So
that's
if
what I
she
mean.
doesn't open her mouth, then
That's what I mean.
people start having meetings and it all stays in a nice legal fashion of paperwork that you track versus, oh, this is what Lori said, and I talked to Dan, and I talked to, this one, and
I agree, but I think almost regardless, I mean, they're gonna contact the village first, and you
And
just,
she can refer them to the.
yeah, it just has to be on them.
When did we wanna give Dan the okay to,
Well, I think he
Well,
said
they're
we've got to
gonna
set up a
have
meeting with
When's
Dan
that?
and Dave.
would that, so will Dan go out to the business owners before our next meeting?
He's not gonna talk to anybody.
Just wanna-
He's just gonna go survey.
Right, that'll be, will he have that information before our next meeting, or would that be?
Well,
It's
We'll
gonna
have
be
to
when
meet
they
with
come
them
in.
and see when he
After,
can
okay.
meet with them.
With that being said, he's stipend monthly, so my thought process is I don't want him to put his regular duties on hold in order to focus on this. So, do you guys support me suggesting to council that there may have to be an added stipend for this
I
task?
support it, but that would be more up to them.
Well,
Yeah.
right, but if you guys support that, I will suggest that to council.
Yeah,
I
I'd support, I'm sure council would. I mean, it would be a one-time
Yeah, right.
thing.
It's giving him a little extra money for the time that survey and resigned it down.
That's what I'm thinking,
For the
there's more
additional,
time.
That's
the additional job that he has to do.
And it's quite a.
Because this is a one-time thing.
Yeah.
One-time
think he'll
additional.
enjoy it.
I think he's gonna love
Oh my goodness.
He probably, he can't, I'm sure he's excited for the phone call. Dan, we got something for you.
But he will want to go in and talk.
No, you got,
But you got that, right?
Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, anybody else? Are we good? So first step is to set up that meeting with yourselves, Dan and Dave. Get them on the right page as far as what's right and what's wrong, and then send Dan and Dave out, and then they'll come back with what they have, and then we'll work on those letters. So that probably gives you a little bit of time to work on that letter too, so. Okay? Good? John, good? Sean, good?
Yes.
Everybody at table? Yep. All right. You're good if you want
We need
to
to-
head down the road.
Sure, thank you.
I think we're good.
Okay. Do you have everybody's email address? Do you want to email all this?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, new business, January election of officers for our board.
I will nominate the same slate that was, Ms. Patrick is chair, and you were co-chair?
And Rachel, because she would be secretary.
Secretary. Unless anybody has any objections or.
nope, I do not.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Planning, I don't know if you want to do this with your planner's report as well, just sort of put it all together. John prepared a yearly review report for the community. Are you good?
So what we have in front of you is what the planning commission was involved with over the past year, 2019. Just quickly going over it, this is a pretty short summary, but in terms of site plan reviews, we reviewed a total of 2 and approved 2 with Basic Metals and the Coyotes Bar development. In terms of variances, which isn't really this body, but it will touch this body. There were 3 variances that were issued. There's Wise Buys, Crossroads Party Store, and the Decor Parks variances that were issued. And in terms of projects and initiatives that were undertaken and are still ongoing in some cases, there was the adoption of the sign ordinance, as we discussed earlier this fall. And then we kicked off the master plan update, which we are actively working on at this time. It should be wrapped up middle of this year or so, maybe late summer at the latest. But that is the summary of what we've done. My plan is to do these every single year over here, so that we have an ongoing record of what we've accomplished as a body. And it's also a good metric to see just how busy we've been, or how the ebbs and flows of each city, or every year, or every market trend that there is. So, yep. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Anyone?
No.
Rob?
The 3 issues that went for variances.
Yep.
It seemed like in the past that it came to planning and planning was able to give their input as far as why, how, and then it went to ZBA. Is there something different in the process?
I am unaware of what the process was before. I know Jeff was more involved with these variances. I know traditionally it does go to a planning commission, which does review it, and then they will have a recommendation to the ZBA. I'm unsure of exactly what the community typically does because I haven't really encountered a variance yet as I've been here. But I'd imagine if that's something that the planning commission wishes to do or review, that probably wouldn't be an issue in the process. There's really no formality in that.
Because it gave planning the opportunity to voice why ordinances are the way they were created. In my time, I'm going back to the last time I was on planning. And this is just different. I've never heard of these. They just obviously went straight to ZBA. So I don't know if there was somewhere in between now and back when that some kind of procedural change was made.
I thought when Jeff was here, I think we had one of these brought up, or Jeff brought it up to us. And I think you mentioned something that we weren't aware, but to let us know that someone came in and asked for variance. Because at that point, I think it was out of planning's hands. I thought that's what Jeff said. It was like a few months ago. Because I remember you mentioned something we'd like to know. And I think one of these was probably one of those cases that we didn't know about.
Well, I mean, we did talk about Crossroads a lot as far as an example of signage.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it coming up as it was going to ZBA. I don't recall.
No,
And what did Decorah Park do?
What, I'm sorry?
What did Decorah Park go to ZBA for? Because
I think it was to get that piece of land.
The
I think
nature
that's
trail.
strip of land.
Yeah, there's a land, lot variance, I believe.
The nature trail. Right.
Yeah.
so they needed to go to ZBA to do what? To acquire the
It
case?
was it zoned something or no?
Because I think the guy gave it to him or something in the end.
It might have been zoned, I think.
I think Mr. Diller found the gentleman, I don't know where or how.
He was out in France or something crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, foreign country, you're right.
And he bought it and did nothing with it, and after 10 years or something, they were able to take it, or he
Well, I
granted
think
it
he
back.
got it.
He bought it
granted
as
back
part
to
of a
the
group.
village.
Part of our soil.
Yeah, he split it.
Right.
I don't know if he did a variance though for us. to
So,
split.
but maybe the zoning on it wasn't appropriate.
Because it was its own piece of land. It just was a piece of land that when the LLC went bankrupt, it just fell through the cracks.
I don't have a problem if variances come here for recommendation. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Well, plus it tells us what is going on, that's, because I don't know what they got different, and then you back up and you say, oh, well, this is the ordinance. If you don't know what's going on, you're in the dark.
It also allows the planning commission to see exactly what's needing to be varied from,
Right.
to see if there's
Yeah.
an ordinance that needs to be amended or adjusted, then maybe a problem trial type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's a way to kind of also have that oversight as a more like a legislative body that you guys are. So.
My understanding as to why it just went to ZBA is I think, if I'm remembering correctly, is it was just more so of a convenience to the people looking for the variance, so they didn't have to show it twice. I believe it was just something as simple as that. So that if it wasn't something we could handle, it wasn't bringing people up twice. I don't think it was anything more than that, but I don't have a problem. That's the typical.
That's the typical, is usually we'll go to the planning commission and then there'll be a recommendation. Non-binding recommendation, but it's nonetheless something good to at least have reference for the ZBA to have that in your pocket.
Typically, what do other communities do?
What's that?
Typically, what do other communities do?
Exactly, that. They had a planning commission preferred. So, and in terms of our side, it's the same letter either way. So as planning commissioner ZBA, it's the same letter in terms of our recommendation for the planning side. So it's just you guys get to review it and have your take on it. And I know that there's been times where planning commission will recommend one thing ZBA acts differently. But at least there's a record of what the community wanted and what these bodies wanted. It doesn't hurt, so.
I just found the minutes, the Decorah Park, Bardo was asking for reducing the rear yard setback on 2 lots. So it wasn't at the turn.
I made an assumption. Are there any other minutes in there?
I do
Rachel?
remember something about that.
Crossroads and Wise Guys?
The Crossroads, I took the minutes for that when they want to put a bigger cooler in, a walk-in cooler.
Okay.
Yeah,
but I didn't
but
see
I didn't see
it.
anything about Wise Guys.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good with that, so we probably just have to make Lori aware that. Do you want me to, or do you want to?
I can call it. Either way, it doesn't matter to me.
I'll call her. that way you know.
Okay, yeah. I think if you want, I can reinforce it.
Okay.
Yep. And I'll make sure if we do get anything, then I'll communicate that to you to make sure that it gets on the agenda if you haven't heard about it, so.
Okay. And the only thing in going back to your summary, just you weren't a part of it, but the adoption of the sign ordinance, just for you, I mean, we did a ton of ordinances. We probably did way more than the sign ordinance. You might want to touch base with Jeff.
Okay.
Just so you guys know that you guys did do a lot more work than just the sign ordinance. You probably did about 6 or 7, maybe 8.
Yeah, if you could update us on the status of them. Did they go to council? Did they get voted up? Did they get voted down?
Okay.
Yeah, what
I
happened
have
all
an
this
email.
work?
They were all
Jeff,
yes.
you can either, I can forward you the email of all of them. There was quite a few more though,
Okay.
just for your records.
They were holding off on publishing to do publishing once.
Yeah.
Was the plan. So as soon as the sign was finished, then it went.
So everything got published on the sign?
Yeah, they were all published together.
I mean, there was the PUD, there was,
Do you want to ask Jeff for them, or do you want me to just forward them to you?
PUD was a big
That's
one.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, the PUD was one we did.
Zoning ordinance.
Zoning.
What part of the orange?
I can,
It was a lot.
Yeah,
There
I
was
do
one.
recall PD. It was funny because I sent Jeff this letter and he's like, yeah, it was good. I'm like, I forgot all the other ordinances that you guys passed recently. So, yeah, PUD. I do remember that one because I was actually involved in that one.
I'm wondering maybe instead of doing this a yearly document, do it every like 6 months? Would it be too much?
Was that?
Instead of doing this yearly, do it every 6 months?
Yeah, whatever you want. I know statutorily, like it's required yearly, but if you guys want,
I mean, what do you guys think? 'Cause we've been talking about this, I mean, a lot has went on in a year.
seems like we did some.
doesn't feel like it.
Right.
Yeah, look at that, yes, it does.
But I know, like,
That was a little
you took
weak.
over, and Jeff left, you took, there might have been a few things that,
yeah, I
related to
mean,
this, I mean, now we're in January, like at the July meeting, maybe there's, might not be anything on here, but, at least we'll,
Well, not to mention, if you get replaced, then at least your replacement has this document.
right.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, every 6 months, that's not that big of a deal. I can definitely do that. So,
Cool, yeah, that'll.
I'm not trying to throw you out or nothing, John, I'm just saying. Your fortune's upturned to get, go somewhere else to start fresh again.
Zoning ordinance was one of them. I can look them through here. I mean, we did
I'm
spend a
sure-
lot of time on the sign ordinance, so I can see it like how it's the only thing we remembered.
Sure, it's embroiled in Jeff's memories.
Yeah.
He could spit it out.
I think that was the one with the most changes.
Yeah, because then the lighting was in there too, I think.
Mhm.
So, yeah, all the neon signs. I think that's probably why we're thinking we did so many, which we did, but there were so many of them that felt in signs.
Well, I think we addressed sign, within the zoning as well, or not signs, lights, heights, and didn't we play with that as well?
Well, like lights on buildings
Yes.
and then windows and that type of thing, yes.
Parking lights.
I believe you did address some dimensional standards in the schedule of regulations. I think some of those were changed as well. Some of the lot standards, I think, were changed.
I think we lowered some of the heights as well.
Yeah, I think there was something like that. So,
Yeah, chat with Jeff and see.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm sure there's a few more than that, so.
Yep. Yeah, and once I get that information, I'll revise this and I'll update this list.
Yeah, what was it when we approved in the summer?
The
Or
new
the
store.
spring?
What's that?
Shoreline
new
Steel.
store.
I-
The new
Right.
store.
Oh,
Shoreline Steel isn't on there.
We
Oh,
approved-
yeah.
We approved that one early?
Maybe that was last year. Maybe that wasn't in 2019. Maybe
I
it was
don't remember
2018.
Shoreline Steel.
Maybe it was 2018.
But nothing's
It was
happened over
in
there
18,
either.
Shoreline Steel.
Oh, yeah, I was waiting.
How do we address that, John? Like Shoreline Steel that we approved over a year ago?
Start bulldozing those houses, 26 direction.
You know, we approved Shoreline Steel, but nothing's ever happened with it. You know,
Yeah, they usually have 1 year to act on the site plan that was approved, otherwise they have to come back for approval again.
I
so
think
it's
it,
expired at this point.
yeah, we probably are expired, because I think we approved it in the late, early spring. I don't think it was in the summer. So I remember Kyle was still here. He
I
left
was
in
here
the
too, for maybe the tail
And-
piece of it.
I think Brian was too.
Yeah,
So that was in 2018.
Yeah, it was 18 because I came in January 19.
So that's definitely expired then, because we're in, yeah, a year and some change.
I know a lot of things happen, people change their minds.
True. We went through all that, all that work, all that drawing, all that planning.
All that hope.
I hope.
parking ordinance? Should we do something with the parking ordinance? I see something here.
Yeah, we did.
Too.
Yeah, so maybe we did, every 6 months would probably be a good idea. If we could-
We covered all of it.
I kind of feel
Yeah.
like we did a lot, so.
I don't think we did much changes to parking.
No, I don't know that we did too many. There were some changes as far as, just size and stuff. I think there was something there. 'Cause I
Some
saw-
handicap, as far as having a ramp of availability to parking spots, so people with ramps can get in and out.
Alrighty, anybody else on the yearly review? Good? Anything else on your planners report?
No, I think that covered most of it. Thank you for updating me on some of the things that are missing on this. Like I said, I'll get that revised. And then I'll make sure that it's disseminated to all of you guys so you have a record of that as well. And then the 6-month standard, I think that's completely fine. Keeps it a little refresh.
Yes.
Okay, any public comments on non-agenda items?
Go green.
Call from the table?
Nothing.
Anyone? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
7:51.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned at 7:50.